Hey, hi.
Just let me get my stuff together.
You're muted, Amy. If
Actually, I was talking to my friend here.
Okay.
He's in the background.
Hello.
Well, we have a quorum. Amy, as a guest, and that just basically means not an appointed member of the committee. I'm going to ask you to kind of refrain from commenting a lot until we get to the point where it's more relevant to what you can help us with.
Thank you.
So anyway. There may be others joining us. Christina notified me that she has a conflict and will not be coming tonight. I am going to begin the meeting at 6:33 of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for the town of Great Barrington. It's February 21st, 6:30 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law as modified July 16th, 2022, which extended remote participation for all members. This meeting of the Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust Fund will be conducted very remote participation. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or member parties with an interest in this meeting can be found on the town website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen may do so. Tonight, we have a quorum, Bill Cook, Ananda Timpain, Joe Method, and Fred Clark. Others may be joining us. Those are the people who are here remotely. Amy Turnbull of the Tiny House Association has joined us as a information and interested party. And I see that Eileen Mooney is also online here. As I say, we may have others who join us. I want to basically devote most of the evening to a workshop for the ADU incentive program, but they have a couple of business items to get out of the way first. The first is we have meeting minutes to be approved, minutes of December 17th. I'd have to look at my screen to see that. That date was January 20th. January 20th was the meeting that we met with Community Development Corporation. If you've had a chance to review those minutes, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of December 20th. Do you need a minute or do you want me to throw them up on the screen?
Yeah, can you throw them up on the screen and just,
I had minutes for the January 17th meeting, but,
Well, we sent these out earlier with the original.
oh, right. Yes, I saw those earlier. Okay.
Share screen, there it is. My chaotic screen, let's see here. Oops, wrong
Oh,
one.
yeah. I'll make a motion, Fred. I move to approve the minutes of the December 20th, 2022 meeting.
And second, I'll second meeting, so by Bill,
Aye,
second by, okay, roll call, Bill Cook,
yes, aye.
Joseph Method,
abstain.
okay, fine. Ananda Payne,
Aye.
okay, and the chair, Fred Clark votes aye, so minutes approved. Over the weekend, Shep Evans sent meeting minutes for
That was January 17th.
Yeah, last meeting.
January 17th.
Yeah.
Which are now on, I assume you can see my screen.
Mhm.
Yes, no?
Yeah, I was going to move to approve those too.
Second.
Bill Cook,
Yes,
Joseph Method.
Second, yeah. Oh, aye. Aye.
Aye. Ananda
Aye.
and chair votes aye. So both meeting minutes are approved. Thank you very much. Stop share. Let's see, how do I stop sharing? Stop share. Do that. Okay, just a couple things for information. One is the town of Stockbridge has voted an affordable housing trust for themselves. They are canvassing all of the affordable housing trusts in the county to try to get some information. They've set up a luncheon meeting on March 16th. All are invited. It's at Lennox Town Hall from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you need any more information, let me know.
what was the date again, Fred?
March 16th. It's
Okay,
a Thursday.
thank you.
Stockbridge, Lennox, Pittsfield, and Williamstown and Great Barrington are the towns with affordable housing trusts. They are trying to get some support, some speakers there. If you can come for an hour, that's great. If you can come for lunch, that'd be great. They will need to know account for lunch if you're coming. Excuse me. I have also been asked to attend as the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, the Joint Select Board Finance Committee meeting on March 7th. This is a budgeting meeting. And the reason that I've been asked to attend is the town manager is going to recommend a substantial line item for the Affordable Housing Trust in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, basically from free cash. I don't know any more details than that, but there has been some talk. You may have also seen that the Joint Select Board, Planning Board, Housing Committee brought forth a number of suggestions. Included in that was a new real estate transfer tax with the proceeds to go to the Affordable Housing Trust. So we may or may not end up as the custodians for money that comes from other sources. So also reporting the North Plain Road Habitat Project was presented to the planning board. I know Bill was online and the planning, I'm sorry. We have a little puppy, so. The planning board is sending it to the select board for a special permit. They made some suggestions, most of them very positive, about changes to roadways and driveways and things like that, more of a technical level. So that's good. I don't have a date for that, but I will share that in case you care to participate.
They gave us a positive recommendation.
They gave us a positive recommendation, with one or two naysayers who'll never be persuaded. Also, the Community Development Corporation project for the marble block, where you may recall we gave them a grant of $100,000, is in flux. They will come back to us with an official request to change the grant. And I don't have a date for that as well either. So that's something that we're going to have to pursue. I don't have any more real details to that other than things are going to change. Ananda, did you have something to say?
My question was, do we know anything about why it's in flux or how it's in flux?
Yes. They had done a pro forma for the marble block, but once their architects and engineers got in there, they found substantial problems, and they went back to the sellers to ask for a change in the price, and that was unsuccessful. And they've decided not to pursue that project. However, at the very same time, a very similar downtown block with stores below and apartments above became available. That one had been recently renovated, so it's in much, much better shape. And what they'd like to do, what the CDC is proposing is that instead of buying one block, they buy a different block. And they're asking if we could review that and change the address, basically. I remind you that our contribution was only a small, 20% of what the town was putting in. The town was also putting in $500,000 from ARPA funds, and CDC has gone to the town manager, and the town manager has acknowledged the issues, understands them, and is supportive of the change to the new project. Ananda, do you want to weigh in?
I just wanted to say that I think this is an opportunity for us to tighten our process. So to me, I'd put out there, the terms of the previous grant had to be tied to that project. And it will have to be, in my view, it would have to be a new proposal. And I would love to talk with Chris Rembold about how to clean up that front end part where we're at, where whatever we need to do to be able to maintain confidentiality where it's needed, but also be looking at some real numbers is addressed.
Well, I think I learned a great deal going through the first one. I think your points are well taken. Going through it the first time is always a learning curve. I will assure you that a pro forma will be presented with adequate time for you to review it before they come before us.
Sounds good.
That's all I have for business news tonight. I'd like to get into our project, if we could, our workshop. You pursue, yes, would you like to take the lead? Ananda or someone? Or should I try to share my screen or something?
Oh, I can try and get us started. Bill and Joe and Fred, have you all had a chance to read the concept proposal I threw together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the other folks in the meeting, the short summary is this is a place for us to start thinking in broad strokes about how we might shape something with kind of high level specificity. I think the purpose of this meeting or this discussion in this meeting is to look at some of those broad strokes together and start to get a sense from us as a body where we have questions, where we see issues, what parts of it are most interesting to us. And the shape of this proposal, which had previously been shared with the trust this fall, right, Fred?
I believe it was.
Yeah. The idea is really that this is a way that we can test the viability of leveraging the Affordable Housing Trust to increase ADUs, while at the same time contributing to securing housing for populations that fall outside of our AMI limits. And then also to test how the trust might be able to partner with individuals, not just organizations, to increase AMI protected housing, and being able to do that starting pretty much now. Like as soon as we can get to a place where we're comfortable with the shape of something, if we want to do this, doing this as a pilot gives us a way to test things right away.
Eileen has her hand up. Just
Okay.
How are you wanting to handle that for this meeting? Is it a meeting where you want people to wait till citizens speak? Do you want people?
What is the sense of the committee?
so
I don't want to get sidetracked, but
I don't want to get sidetracked either, but I've seen people complain on Facebook that they feel like they're just like in a soundless box when they're an attendee, and they can't even I would encourage.
if we have a small group, I'm fine with having a few comments.
I would say just make them panelists, and then even just be able to be like, not now, but at least you have like a face. And
Eileen,
I just
you have a
wanted,
question?
wondered if I could please have a copy of what Ananda had sent out so that I can follow along.
I will, while she's talking, I will look for it and send it to you.
Also,
Thank
I think it should be in a packet from this fall on the town website.
yeah,
Ah, okay, I can look.
I think I sent it with the agenda,
You might have, and I didn't look at it. Thank you.
but
Joe, to your point about the discussions, the town meeting a couple of years did make an advisory vote to the select board, advising the select board to have citizens speak, I think like at the end of each item rather than just at the end.
okay.
Nobody's bound by it, it's advisory, but I just was thinking of that's an interesting option.
Okay, just as long as people feel like they can, that they're being heard, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay, so, is it helpful for me to continue to recap, or do you all want to get into kind of the key discussion areas that I'd started identifying for us, and you all might have more?
Yeah, I don't need a further discussion. I'm happy to start jumping right in.
All right,
Can someone share it on their screen?
Yes, I will in a moment.
I just think it's good to have it as a
I'm
to help.
just sending it out to the other participants quickly. Let me just pull it up. Give me 2 secs.
Mhm.
if you give me, Fred, if you give me permission, I can. Whatever's easier.
One participant in advance.
Right. So while,
Can you share? I don't know.
you'd have to give me permission.
I'll make you a host. How about that? Make co-host. I'm not going to say my role over, but I'm going to make you the co-host. I believe that gives you the ability to share.
All right.
I think. If not, in the meantime, I'll start pulling it up. I also sent, well, that was a different thing. Never mind.
Oh, interesting. Sorry, this has just a different interface than I usually use.
If you like, I've got it now.
Okay, why don't you go ahead, since it wasn't giving me the option to just share that file.
Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yep. Mhm.
And Eileen and Amy, I emailed it to you as well. So.
So do you want to scroll down to the points for general discussion, and maybe we'll just start there?
Okay.
Oh, back up.
I did have a question on the back.
Oh, sorry, you were doing just fine, Fred. You went past it, but it is below a little bit. Yeah. What's the,
Background information.
yeah, go ahead.
I was trying to figure out how you got construction cost of the ADU where you did, because I figured the garage size is actually 25.5 feet by 30 feet.
Now, a typical garage is 22 by 22 or 22 by 24.
Okay, in any event, that would have ended up with 768 square feet. Then at $400 a square foot, that's over 300,000. So
The average sizes I just pulled from like national data on an average garage size, that's square footage.
Yeah.
And multiplied it by the per foot.
Right.
You know, we're also talking about a 2-car garage here. So 24 by 24 is fairly standard, which is what, 600?
Yeah, this is for a studio, right? So I'm not saying this is a way for us to think about it. I'm not saying the whole purpose of the design of this way of thinking about doing a pilot is to get out of micromanaging exactly what the size is. So this is a small garage. It's a garage that's maybe behind somebody's house on the hill. Maybe somebody else, it's 2-room, maybe somebody else, it's a 2-car garage and they're going to do something else with it. Somebody might be converting the whole garage into ADU. Somebody else might be putting it on a second floor, right? So this is not like, this is like the most stripped down version could look like this. It could look like a lot of other things.
Mhm.
I think it's a great placeholder, a starting place, average, whatever you want to call it. We need to have something like this as a foundation.
Mhm.
And my thought was to make something where we could be partnering with the creativity of the individual rather than having to come up with the entirety of the solution.
Mhm.
Which I think might actually speak to your point, Fred, from an earlier meeting where you were curious about how whether or not the structure of something like this could actually also be something that somebody who wanted to put tiny house infrastructure in could utilize. So that we could be a little bit less restrictive and also less responsible for figuring out all the details.
Mhm.
I think that's a really good idea because that, you have a fixed cost and it's not very much, and you actually could get income from it.
Fred, when you have a minute to scroll down to the
Sure.
general discussion points.
Is that adequate?
That looks pretty good to me.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, looks good.
Oh, but nobody who can, so, okay, good.
Um,
Finance.
Beyond AFT funds. So we're talking, so like we have these ballpark numbers, let's just say 100,000, just to keep it simple. So if it's like we're saying like someone might spend $100,000 to convert a garage into an ADU. What in that case, what would the size of the loan from us be?
Well, it would depend.
It depend, but
So-
would it cover their whole cost, or?
Well, in this proposal, in this framework, I'm saying a person could, like for the pilot, we'd set 100,000 aside.
Yeah.
And a person could apply for up to that full 100,000.
Up to it.
However, somebody else might be a builder. And they might be like, I just need the cost of materials. I don't need to finance the labor because I'm the labor. Or somebody else might have a little bit of savings and it's not enough to do the project themselves, but it's enough for them to ask for less from us. So that's what I mean about like, we can leave high flexibility on the applicant's end to have it designed to meet their specific financial needs while knowing that we're actually putting enough on the table that something can happen. And then that's the part, that's why it's a pilot, because we will get information from who applies and what their applications say about how people see this and what they can see as possible.
Okay, and then there's this idea that said 50% is a 0% loan, so we get that back, and then the other 50% would be eligible to be turned into a grant after 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just playing with this, but I was thinking about like, if we're basically ensuring that a certain amount of rent is held at an affordable rate, and it actually adds up to quite a bit over a 10-year period. And could we make it a little bit easier for people? So the thought I had was, yeah, say 50% of it's a 0 interest loan and that gets paid back. The other 50% is a grant that's eligible for forgiveness if they meet all of the terms and successfully have 10 years worth of rental at an affordable rate. And if that was met, that we would forgive that other 50%.
Mm.
It's, you know, and it would be proportional to the rent that we were able to secure in the community at that level. I'm not really attached to that. I just was thinking about how we can play around with creative ideas where we're helping people who need affordable rent, and we're leveraging that to help the people in this community who might be just outside of that, but also still can't really afford the housing market.
Mhm.
So I have two questions. One is, if we use CPA funding, does it not have to be affordable permanently?
Well, one, I don't know the answer to that, but don't we have some 30-year restrictions?
We don't.
Okay. I don't know the answer to that, and we could ask.
Yeah, I think we should check into that.
I think I think there are benefits to restricting something for life, but I also think there are benefits to
Oh, yeah,
not having to manage that forever.
yes.
We need to find out, but my gut is that it's not, that it's just, because I feel like the language of CPA is just like, use this money to make affordable housing. And like, so if you make it for 10 years, I think that would be in the spirit.
Bill, my recollection is that if we own it, if we actually take possession of something, we need to then
Hmm.
impose an affordable housing, which I believe is in perpetuity. But we can make grants, I believe.
Okay,
I also want to relate to you a small anecdote that recently the select board, I think last spring, was faced with a loan of something on Rossiter Street, and the person had died or had been moved on or something. It was a mess, and it was like 30 years old from a previous select board. And I think there's always a danger of creating these time bombs when you start to do things in long terms and perpetuity. I like the idea of forgiveness. I think that's one of the biggest comments that we've had about things like our down payment program. While we can explain the benefits of a zero interest loan, many people are shy of that if it doesn't have some incentive for forgiveness.
Well, and I think it's also a way, like, if we're really thinking about this as a way to play with how can we incentivize something too, that's an interesting way to do it.
yeah, I think that's a valuable thing.
Until you get your tax situation happening for us, Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of an incentive and it turning into a grant, all that. The actual like numbers, like the actual like.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi. No. And okay, bye.
But the actual like mechanics of it, you know, like what the actual number should be, I'm not sure, but.
For the pot for the
Yeah,
pilot.
just like, you know, should it be 50%, whatever, you know, like I don't know what the forgiveness rate should be.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, but I mean, so like in the case of the 100,000, after 10 years, they would essentially take their $100,000 liability and it'd become a $50,000 liability. And so then for them to recoup their investment, everything would look nicer for them. But
And over the 10 years, they would have paid down some of the loan already.
right.
I mean, and again, like I don't know how, I mean, I haven't done that math out that far, and it would depend on what somebody chose to apply for and what we approved, but again, if part of what we're trying to do is make it affordable, a little bit more affordable for somebody who is having a hard time affording the higher mortgages, but doesn't fall in AMI, then that's a way we're also making sure that there is, that's not just them paying forever.
Yeah, well, yeah, so you had those example rents, and like, it's like $1,000, say, as the monthly rent, it, for this investment, without forgiveness, it's going to take them probably about 10 years to pay off, to get a return on it, on investment.
Right.
So having a forgiveness, I mean, it kind of makes sense to me, because it's basically, it's like a kind of, it's not, but it's like a Section 8 voucher, it's like it subsidizes it. So I think there should be a subsidy in it. So I think
It's a subsidy, and then also, well, they won't have a return on their investment till, whatever horizon however we figure it out. We still have power to structure the overall loan part of the payments in such a way that we can make sure that on a cash flow basis, month to month, they are benefiting from the income.
Sure.
Which is one of my goals, is that.
Yeah, if it's a 0% interest loan,
That they can actually apply some of the income to their mortgage each month.
Do you want another part of the screen to pop up, or?
So these are some points for discussion, and then below, I think there are some questions. It's really, I think, by the end of this conversation, I'd like to know if this is something we want to pursue, and then have a sense of what parts we need to fine tune. So that's my goal, and I'm really want to hand it to the three of you to ask the questions you need and have the discussion you need to kind of answer that.
I think it's really difficult to be specific here, because every project we've talked about, whether it's over a garage or, part of making a 2-family out of a 1-family, they're all so different, and the requirements are also different. It's almost impossible to come up with sort of a template for this.
Well, I think it may not fit every application. If somebody's spending $200,000 or more, this is probably not the program for them. But I think what we're trying to do is give them enough of an incentive or a leg up that we tilt people into making that decision to go for it, to go and make their investment. Maybe not on all projects, but on some where, the typical garage, the typical 1-family that has the house I live in is a single family house, but for 100 years it was a 2-family and has a second first floor entrance. It has 4 first floor entrances. And could be put back as a 2-family. And I think that there's a few of those around.
Sounds like the perfect situation for a pilot program, Fred.
I think there's a bit of a conflict there.
Yes, actually, I think we're forbidden expressly from accessing our programs for a year.
Yeah.
But
I don't think I'd meet, well.
To your point, though, that last bullet is something that I'd be interested in exploring if it's allowable. Because if we could you know, if we could be like, okay, it's gonna be broad, it just has to be within AMI, but the rules are, you can't charge your renter more than 30% of their income. The problem with that is that I don't think there's a way without setting a lower AMI that you don't still kind of skew to the higher end of the income, because the incentive will be for people to set rent as high as they can within the rules.
Yes, of course.
And would the rent be readjusted once a year when the new AMI numbers are out? Or how would that
Well,
work?
I think, and I don't know this well, but I think that, for the pilot, like, we're just talking about the pilot. So we're talking about in subsequent years, I think the question is there a new tenant or not? Because I don't think, we can't require people to be evicted if their income changes and is now outside of AMI.
Yeah, that would be against fair housing.
Right. So, I mean, I think we need to get into the details there, but I suspect part of the answer is for any units in this program that are open and seeking applications, then yes, it would be a fresh start with the updated AMI.
Can we structure it another way? So that we set a base or a ground level at the first year tenancy, but the subsequent rent can only rise no more than 5% or the average cost of living or something. So rather than tie it to AMI and income, we modify the rent. Because it seems to me that you'd be easier to monitor that than.
But I think that I think that the Affordable Housing Trust has to be tied to AMI, and
Well, we would start with the,
about that is that it makes sure we're casting a net that as closely as possible matches data on cost of living.
I'm just concerned about the documentation that would be required on an annual basis, and somebody would have to be doing that. Most programs have the landlord or renter having to pay a fee to have that recertified every year.
Yeah.
And I just think that could be burdensome, but.
Well, that's where the loan payment grant dynamic gives, like, there's an incentive to be operating within the program that for the landlord, because if they don't operate within right, so it's like that helps with compliance, because if they don't operate within the program, then they will lose the possibility of having any of the loan forgiven as a grant.
I mean, we could be in a situation where some future board, because I probably won't be on it, 10 years down the road, where somebody comes and says, okay, I've rented for 10 years. I'm seeking a release of the 50%. And we say, okay, give us the documentation that you've been keeping for 10 years. And they're like, what? I don't even remember who rented my apartment 5 years ago or 7 years ago.
Right.
They were only there for 2 months and they stuck me and I had to pay for, a broken sink or something and all those other kinds of things. And I just don't want to get into all of that if we can avoid it.
So do you remember what the Barnstable County one how they structured that part of their program?
Yeah, there was somebody.
Sorry.
I have the power to mute you. If I start looking at my thing, you'll probably not be able to see it. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean I think that's an important question for us to answer, but I think we can come up with an answer that is streamlined, because I agree the administration of it has to be fairly simple.
This is Barnstable, Massachusetts, a town on the Cape.
Yeah.
This
Down in-
is what I got from them, their website.
Down at the bottom, it talks about the
Under the loan.
no, keep going down bottom. The down monitoring. So annually the homeowner should submit documentation of the rent charged for the accessory apartment and the income of the tenant to the AAP coordinator. The homeowner and tenant shall provide as deemed necessary by the AAP coordinator to verify information. I feel like maybe Barnstable, like, I don't know, maybe they would.
So they have a full-time housing person
Yeah.
employed by the town, something that Jeremy Higa has suggested that the Great Barrington needs.
Mhm.
The AAAP is the accessory apartment, I believe. Accessory apartment coordinator,
Mhm.
although there's an extra A in there.
But like, would Barnstable, would they actually kick somebody out for being, if they like suddenly got a better job?
No, they have to pay the loan back immediately. Or they've
the
got 90
rent-
days to pay the loan back.
The renter, but with the rent, like if the renter, like they went to do the income eligibility and they're like, well, now I make a lot more money.
My recollection in reading through this, and it's been a couple of weeks. I'm gonna go back to the beginning. I hope this doesn't make you dizzy.
No, it's fine.
I mean, you can't evict somebody because they now make more money, but you could tie it to the income documentation time of application.
So they,
Bullet point 4 under program requirements. Maybe if the owner doesn't comply with the comprehensive permit in the first instance, the town will work with the property owner to resolve the non-compliance. If no resolution is found, the loan will be in default and shall be repaid according to the terms of the mortgage. I believe.
I mean, this is to me, it's an argument for then, like, if we are going all the way up to 100% of AMI, this is not as much of an issue.
what if someone goes up, like goes to 101%? They got
No,
it right.
I get what you're saying. I don't think you can have a program that requires people to evict somebody when their income changes.
Right.
Yeah, but so they're saying like, okay, the town will work with them, but like, what would the
Under the loan, the third bullet point is the accessory apartment shall comply with the comprehensive permit at all times. If the unit is out of compliance, the loan is in default.
Right, but so like Joe, what I'm saying is if you have it be that the documentation is the documentation at the time of that the lease is signed.
Yeah, I guess maybe your permit just specifies that. I mean,
Right.
I think it's fine, I guess you would worry about like, you worry about like public perception and just like the sense of like, oh, here's this affordable housing that's set up and this guy's getting the homeowner's getting this sweet deal where they get a write-off, but the person who's benefiting, like now they make a bunch of money.
Right.
And I personally, I'm not worried about it, but I could just see people being like fixating on that. And that's what you would run into if you're saying like in the first year they didn't make enough money or they were under AMI, and then in years 2 through 10 they did make more. So I don't know if that would happen a lot, but like if that did happen, that'd just be kind of, someone might be offended. So.
Yeah, I get that. I think. And I think it's, I think we're in a complicated community, right? Like, I think that, so many people work in various versions of hospitality, and I think there's just always going to be the room for like 1 year somebody did just a little bit better, or the room for somebody in the community to be like, I know them, like, I know that they actually work under the table. And so
Yeah.
I guess for me, at the end of the day, like, I feel like what's important is setting up something that really has is going to put somebody who needs housing into housing and keep them there as long as possible. And be thoughtful about really trying to make sure that it's as accessible to the people who are maybe struggling the most. But the goal is somebody gets to stay in our community, because that's where we are right now. I'm sure, like, people are leaving constantly
For sure.
and then moving their employment too.
I'm looking at this Barnstable. I mean, I know we're supposed to be looking at ours, but I'm looking at this Barnstable document. It looks pretty good to me. I mean, sure, the lawyers have approved it and all, but and I'm getting a little confused by looking between these two.
Well, I think what's helpful, like, I think the Barnstable's will be helpful in a next step down the road, right? Because a lot of the Barnstable document is about really getting into how to communicate the terms to the community, and have the terms be specific enough to be able to to be able to kick somebody out of the program. So I think it's an end level of detail for some of the information that will be needed if we're actually executing this.
So I get the sense from the other 3 members that are here besides Ananda that we do want to go forward with this. If anybody wants to object, please, or comment, please make yourself known.
I don't want to object. I just have trouble making the numbers work, but that's okay.
Well,
what
is it
would be our
close
next
enough?
step?
Is it close? I'm sorry. Is it close enough, Bill, that if we keep at it, maybe we can tweak it enough to make the numbers work?
Maybe if the cost of housing and mortgage rates go down.
Also, Bill, I think that part of the point of structuring it as a pilot is that all data is good data. It's all, it's all information. And so my thought of like doing a 3-month application window, see if you get anything, part of what the information you might get back is, no, this structured this way, or this is, I can't, nobody could make it work.
Right.
But it's also, I think, the tricky part that we haven't talked about, and I don't think we have time to get into tonight, is the size of the pot. Because I don't think we can run a viable pilot if we don't have a large enough pot. Because, I think we need people to be able to have people respond, whether it's that it is a larger project and they need like 100,000 to offset whatever else they're putting into it, or for there to be people who have whatever ways that they actually need a lot less. I think part of what we want to get from this is people saying, oh, this is how I could use this, or actually there's no way I could use this.
So I want to stay on this for just a second because I have questions. You two have, and Joe too. Bill and Ananda and Joe, you've all looked at this in various aspects more than I have. And Ananda, you just mentioned the size of the pot. And you've mentioned a couple times $100,000 for a grant for somebody. I'm a little reluctant to go in with a concept of $100,000 per grant, only because it restricts us, our reach,
Right.
our
It's not
ability to influence many people. I would prefer to try to mine for a number that's sufficient to tip somebody over the top, rather than you
So
know.
if I may, it is not $100,000 per grant in my proposal. It's a total pot of 100,000 and for the pilot, so that we can see what applications we get. And that we'd consider doing a single grant of 100,000, but it also might be that what we get are applications that allow us to do several smaller grants. The point of the part of the point of the pilot is to interact with the community and get information in that way. And on that high end, that's where I am with Bill. The numbers are such that we can't count on there being a smaller amount that will definitely work. I think we have to kind of have that option for the larger amount to get a sense, I think, of what is possible from people in the community. Because the cost of construction is high, and because what I put out there in broad strokes, like that's like a single car garage. That's as slim as you can get on a complete space. But I do think that I do think there's stuff we don't know, and that having people actually put ideas together will be of high value. I can't stay on too long tonight, so I'm wondering if we could talk about next steps.
Yes, and we would also like to talk about whether this can be applicable to tiny houses. Is that something that is beyond, or is that part of next steps?
I think that's a great idea, that we should include the tiny houses, because you don't have to pay for the cost of the construction. You just build a pad and connect it to the utilities. Much lower upfront cost for anybody.
Is it
So-
true that the tiny house, like the bylaws that allow for tiny houses, are essentially the same as the ADU?
Yeah, pretty much.
So then
Yes,
I would say, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the broader our reach, when we go out and ask people what they'd like, what they could use some money for, the broader the reach, the better.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that, like, I think, one of the things we'd have to talk through before doing this is like, let's say that we advertised successfully and we got several applications for this pilot run.
Mhm.
We would want to have some criteria about how we were going to rank them.
yes, we have to.
That's
From a
huge
public point of view, we have to have criteria.
And I think one thing that is different about in this proposal than previous discussions we've had about tiny housing is the part where I'm proposing that one of the criteria is that the landlord / homeowner needs to be able to, they have a case for how this is going to help them be able to live in Great Barrington.
Yes.
That's in there.
So,
It left it pretty broad. Because I think at a pilot stage, you want a certain amount of openness so that you can refine from there. But so maybe that's the next step, is further discussion on some of those details.
Yeah, I'd want to hash that out.
so in practical terms, we have maybe $90,000 that we could dedicate to this between now and July 1st. after July 1st, assuming town meeting accepts the CPA recommendations, we might have another 125,000, something around that range, that wouldn't be already encumbered or committed. So a total of maybe 200-ish
Yeah, and my
could
guess,
be available within 6 months.
yeah, and my guess is we wouldn't be ready to launch this pilot before May at the earliest, probably June.
Well, and then money might not be available till closing unless we follow the Barnstable plan of paying the contractor or whatever.
Mm.
Yes.
Well, there isn't a closing, but, well, there would be a closing because it'd have to be the legal contract for the,
Yeah, and it's
but
essentially a
then the
mortgage.
disbursement of the money just gets paid out when the work gets done.
Yeah. Sort of like a construction loan.
Like, yeah, exactly like a construction loan.
So we should probably also do a little thinking about a marketing campaign of some kind to let people know that we are going to make money available.
My
And
favorite.
pilot program, send us an application. What are you thinking of?
Yeah. And I think this, this could easily be get some news coverage and, ask for Ellen's help getting it out online.
I mean, I think part of the reason for doing this is the planning board and zoning changes enabled this construction to be easier, but nobody knows about it. So part of what we want to do is to make it known. So Ananda, you asked for next steps. I think the 3-4 of us now are all kind of in agreement that we can go forward with this. I think we need to have another kind of round of narrowing down what the actual percentages are here and whether we put any limits on. I think we all generally agree that the broad strokes, the outlines that you've sketched out are the direction that we want to go in.
Maybe we could just issue essentially a request for proposals and see what comes in.
Hey, sorry, but I did that. I cannot tell a lie. We've
What
come
can you
round robin.
That's what this proposal is, Bill. But it's saying this is like, here's the program, here's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Submit your proposals, and then we will have criteria that we'll evaluate them by.
Yeah.
So I feel like the next steps are just we just need to nail down all the details.
Right, and
Put this in a form that we can distribute.
Yeah.
And then start talking about the sub parts, the documents, the funding, the publicity.
Yeah.
come up with a list
Timeline.
of criteria?
Criteria,
Yeah. I
very
think
important.
I think the next step is coming up with the list of criteria to qualify and how we would rank proposals. I think we need to do that before we try to market anything or.
Yes, we're not
No,
anywhere
I
near.
think we need a packaged plan before we market anything. Like, we
Yeah.
need all the details worked out, the application done, all that.
All right. So in the next month, do we want to have a subcommittee to work on the details to then also discuss it during the next meeting?
That would probably make sense.
I don't think we can call it a subcommittee, but we can have people work on things.
Well, it's just a sub quorum. So that's what is quorum? Is it 3 people? Or what's sub quorum? 3 people?
Quorum is 4 people.
So 3 people can talk about it over email. Right. So I would volunteer to talk about it over email.
Great. I have just limited availability. I'm recovering for COVID. So Joe, if you wanted to kind of take the lead on that and I'll stay involved in the discussion, that would be,
Yeah, I can do that. What I usually do is I create a Google document, Google Drive document. So I can share you on it and then one other person. I don't really like the open meeting laws myself. But yeah, so like one other person can collaborate on it.
Okay. Yeah,
Hold
I
on,
mean,
Amy, for a second.
I can do that.
Okay, so yeah, so
Yeah.
it'd be me, Nanda, and Bill on a document.
Okay.
sounds good.
And then I have to keep you in the dark, Fred.
Well, you can share things with me as the chair as long as I don't share back to you guys or something.
Well,
Yeah.
and also, the point is to bring this back to the full committee at the next meeting. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's nothing would be decided. It's just to have something in a
work form.
work form. Yeah.
So you can share things with me and telephone calls don't count for open meeting law. So anyway, Amy, did you have a comment?
So I was on a committee for the ADU bylaw in Dalton. It is an official committee and there are definitely rules that you have to follow. I think Joe is right. If you just called it like a work forum, and I would love to be a part of that. You may
Right.
not love to have me be on there, but
I think that's fine. That's fine.
You don't count against the quorum, so.
That's right.
Eileen wants to say something.
yeah, so I'm just looking for when I can have my comments. So you let me know because I have a few.
Let me just see what Eileen wants to say first, and Eileen, go ahead.
Why don't you just post as a subcommittee or a regular meeting, whatever?
We will
And
take it up.
you don't have to worry about attendance or anything.
What do you mean post?
An open meeting law post.
Yeah,
Oh, like
Eileen, if we form a subcommittee, then we have to like post the meeting.
Yeah.
right. That's not
Yeah,
a deal.
I don't think that we are going to have like a 48-hour advance notice and an agenda.
we're just,
to-
I'm
like,
just talking about like emails back and forth just to work out a document.
Yeah, I don't think it's a barrier for, I don't think it's a barrier for us advancing the process to have 3 of us tackling the work of making sure that there's a revised version for next meeting.
Okay, I'm not sure. I was just envisioning a group session, not just emails.
It won't be a group session. It'll be
Just because we don't have time.
somebody edit a document and then somebody else will review that edit.
You might want to check with the open meeting law people just to be sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think the easiest thing is for us to not have more than 3 people involved.
Well, that may still cross a line.
Well, then let's
You
have-
really might check.
Yeah, I think it would be better off checking.
Okay.
It's free. They're very nice people.
yeah, it's,
I know the law is flawed, but it's best to follow it.
we're not following it.
I know you're not.
Okay, that's good. The next
Yeah.
meeting is, I think it's March 21st,
Okay.
third Tuesday. Amy, I know you're interested in talking. Ananda, if you have to leave, well, we're gonna lose our quorum if you do, but we have no votes scheduled, so we can just continue. Amy, why don't you go ahead? We really value your input.
But you want me to make it snappy?
Well,
That's 29.
Okay, so listen, if I'm gonna be on the subcommittee, I'll just put all my notes in an email. How about that for easy?
Joe's the coordinator, so whatever he wants to do is fine.
Also, just we are not creating a subcommittee. That is important that it's clear in this record because that would have very clear things we had to do. So
We can't call it, we're not creating,
not creating a working group. We're not creating a subcommittee.
we're not.
No,
Committee members
Right.
work on a document that will come back to the full committee. There
Right.
won't be any official deliberations. There will be, it will not exceed the number of people who can do that between meetings.
Well, it seems like you already have your 3 people, so then maybe I better make my case right now and let's.
well, you don't
I'm-
count on the
You don't
quorum.
count.
Oh, I don't count. Oh, God. These are just what-
You don't live in Great
No,
Barrington, you
It's a
don't
good
count.
thing. It's a
Amy,
good
why
thing you
don't
don't count.
say-
You're a consultant.
Amy, why don't you say what you want to say? Because then it will be introduced into the record.
Oh, okay. So just to try to make it quick, because I know you have to go, Ananda. So first of all, I'm really happy to hear that you are considering PADS under the financial help that can be, available through the trust. So if I go in order of things, I think the one thing I would say is the sale covenant, like if you have someone who's part of it and they want to sell their house later, but they can't because they're part of it, that's something you might want to look into. It's a disincentive. The other disincentive would be a construction loan type of arrangement. I've done an extensive research in this. I always use Portland as my guide, and that's where I get most of my information. So that's points 1 and 2 under disincentive. And the other thing would be, I know, Ananda, you talked about being equitable. So giving everyone $100,000, you did say that, and maybe you didn't mean it, as you said, you clarified later, but that would be highly inequitable. So I like,
That's not, the text of the proposal, it does not say that. It says that there's a total pot of 100,000 for the.
oh,
pilot.
okay. All right, I'm glad you clarified that again. So I like Bill's idea of a broader reach. So like $20,000 each. And I think if you guys make it a set amount, like you did with the Affordable Housing Trust, we're like, okay, well, we're going to give you, a down payment, whatever. And then I think that was a percentage that might work better. And I think AMI is a slippery slope because you're going to get into a management thing. And I don't think you guys have that management unless you do an RFP and you bring on Construct or American Tiny House or someone like that, or someone signs up to do this, as a, what was the word? An AAC. So there's that. I want you to consider again the revolving loan trust, and I would love to run the whole AMI scheme through Kevin Polk, who's done an amazing job of trying to find the most equitable and fair system for getting money to people who need it in housing.
Amy, just to clarify that we have a we have to be tied to AMI. The question is how, how do we structure that? But as an affordable housing trust, we have to be providing housing to people who fall within AMI.
Oh, okay, all right, but it's kind of loose, really. I mean, you could do with it what you wanted, whatever, I mean, within reason, right?
No, it's if you mean by loose, it's like we can make decisions about if it's 60% or 80% or 100%, then yes. But if you meant loose differently, it's very clear that we have to be providing housing to people who fall within.
Okay.
We can't.
So that's going to be tricky managing that. I know you guys are aware of that. And I know that Bill was for forgiveness, which is an incentive. But I would clarify that as long as the recipient can prove need would be important, and therein lies the problem, which we spoke about, so I don't need to bring it up again. Annually, however you wanted to structure that, you'd have to have somebody in charge of that, so that's going to be huge. So what about Construct? Would they do it if you didn't want to do it as an RFP, if you didn't want to make a job in Great Barrington, would Construct be on board to do that? And finally, just looking at my notes, so bear with me here. Yeah, so that's it. That sort of covers all the things. I listened to all your points. I think it was well presented. You've got a lot of really good ideas. They sound a lot like some of my ideas, and so I hope you guys will consider keeping me in the loop. I was felt a little shut out earlier. I know I emailed all of you. I've put a lot of time and effort into this. I understand that maybe you're not going to do it as an RFP, and I'm totally okay with that, because at my core, I am an affordable housing person. So even if I'm going to give it away for free, I am willing to do that. So I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other, let's see, comments from any of the members of the trust panel?
Not on anything that's been discussed before.
Well,
maybe-
on anything you want to talk about, we're gonna wrap up this discussion and say, next steps, and we'll
Yeah.
pick it up next time. But
maybe just for the record, people on Facebook there's a Facebook group that's about affordable housing crisis or something like that. And people were concerned about the meeting that was the meeting about affordable housing that was done as like a select board and planning board and private individuals, but had no public participation or something like that.
it was a posted meeting, and the select board and planning board have created a housing subcommittee chaired by Lee Davis.
Yeah.
That meets every other Friday, something like that. I believe it's posted on the town calendar.
Yeah. I guess I don't even have enough details about it. I just know some people were
It is not a meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust.
It is a standing committee now, so that's just good to know, and it's has to be posted just like our meeting does, so that's a way folks can find it.
I've attended a couple times, but haven't been recognized to speak.
I think I know the meeting you were talking about, Joe, and that was, I think, a Berkshire housing meeting where they invited select people. They did it. It wasn't a sort of a government meeting.
Oh, I was.
Subject to open meeting law or anything else.
Yeah, that and well, anyways, it was in the Berkshire Edge. They were talking about it.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
About it, and I just was wondering if anyone knew about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I went to the meeting. I was a registered member. I was invited as a private individual. I have all of the slides from the meeting. If anybody would like a copy, just let me know, and I can share them. If that's the meeting you're talking about. Are there any other comments from any of the members? Okay, next meeting is March 21st. Are there any citizens or media who are interested in making a comment? If so, please raise your hand or make yourself known. If you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand on the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. I have nobody has identified themselves.
So can I just make one more comment?
Absolutely.
Okay, sorry. So I'm looking at the amount of money that you would want to give to somebody and how it would be paid back. I think the feeling is that you'd want to do grants. And I just wanted to remind you how ineffective that was with one of the authorities I talked to, who had an incentive program for ADUs. And I think, I'm not sure if there was an affordability issue from the homeowner on that. So I think if there was, like if you have a homeowner who can't do a regular ADU and they needed a grant to do a tiny house pad or an ADU or a garage conversion, then that might work. But just to arbitrarily give somebody all that amount of money. So I guess that my question is, are you going to make the person who's asking for the grant, the homeowner who's going to do the work, are you going to make them able to, do they have to meet AMI?
No, they do not have to meet AMI. The purpose of doing it this way is to be able to support, to leverage our AMI restricted funds, to be able to also support people who are just outside of AMI, but can't afford, maybe can't afford their mortgage or the house that they want, or the house that they're going to buy. So.
Yeah, I mean, that is a
At the
a tough
criteria,
thing. Sometimes
that
people do get lifted.
criteria, we
Yeah,
would be setting criteria around what is the strongest candidates when we're considering applicants in terms of their need as homeowners or prospective homeowners.
okay, so that's what you guys meant by criteria then, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Criteria is embedded in mass procurement law. Before we issue anything, we have to publicly state what criteria we're going to use to evaluate any responses. So yes, that is part of what we will hammer out.
okay.
And I think, the issue that you're talking about has two sides. One, we want to make sure that we're leveraging our funds and using them as much as we can. But two, we want to make sure that the homeowner has the resources to continue to complete the job. We want them to be landlords.
And have you given any thought to revolving loan funds?
Yes, we have, but we don't think that the incentive is, well, I'll speak personally. I believe we have, but I don't think that we're of the opinion that the incentive is not sufficient.
Yes, and also in this proposal, it is, in some ways, it's structured similar to the student loan forgiveness programs. So there's an option for partial forgiveness in the proposal I put out, which is not going to necessarily be where we land, right? But it's still at least 50% in this framework would still be a loan that's paid back. And it would only be if you'd met all of the criteria and successfully housed somebody within the AMI limits over a 10-year period that you would be eligible for forgiveness on 50% of what you borrowed.
I think
That's
10
this
years. Yeah, I think 10 years is a good amount of time. I know I struggled with it when I wrote the RFP for American Tiny House within the 5 years, because quite honestly, the expense of making an ADU, even a tiny house ADU, to pay that back in 5 years is prohibitive. So 10 years is doable.
Our meeting's kind of beyond this a little bit. We do have, we do allow comments here, but we're really not intending to get into a back and forth at this point in the meeting. So.
Thanks for that, Fred. I'm going to hop off now.
So any other comments? Hearing none, nobody's raised their hand. I'm going to end the meeting for everyone now, unless I hear objection. Without objection, good night.
Night.
Right.